Me, I'm on. Well, good morning. Glad to see everybody. Glad y'all are here. Um, of course, this is that, that special religious Sunday called Stewardship Sunday. um, wow, y'all didn't think that was funny? No, I did. It's, yes, um, Hezekiah 4:2. It's just, whenever somebody asks you about a scripture and you're not sure, you just say Hezekiah 4:2. There is no Hezekiah, but people don't know that. It just seems good. It seems, yeah, it's Bible. So I've always just come to know that, and people say, Where'd you get that from? Hezekiah 4:2. Oh, okay, wow. He knows. Yeah, gotcha. Uh, wow. So there's that. Just an announcement. This has nothing to do with religious calendars or anything, but just so just you will notice the organ is not sitting there. It has not been sold. I have not moved it personally or anything. It was just not working, and for the Rogers company to scan it, analyze it, to figure out where we're to go from here, they had to take it with them back to their workbench, which is a very big workbench, I'm assuming. But they took it back to the back cave to analyze it. And so the session at this point, we're doing everything we can to this point to find out, analyze where the organ's at and where to go from here. Doing everything we can to save it. So there you go. Just wanted put the Christmas tree in the corner. That is, you could do that. That under the issues of the teaching elder, that is not in my. I yeah. Wait. Oh, okay. Um, well, yeah. Let me. Yeah. Let me. Yeah. This is not a Baptist church. We don't do that. Yeah, we don't make decisions on the fly. Nothing against my Baptist buddies. Well, a little something, but that's it. So again, teaching elder, ruling elders, two different things. I don't really make those decisions. Happened in Mossville once, that when they cut down the Leland cypress in the backyard, the guy walked in and said, "What idiot cut those down?" And I was the only person in the room, so I knew exactly which idiot he was directing this towards. I said, "Well, I got my chainsaw out this morning." No, I said, "That's a session decision. I don't make those decisions." That didn't work very well for this person. I think the word idiot came up one more time, but there you go. So, Stewardship Sunday is this. It's always in November that it helps you take stock. Now, the problem with the notion of stewardship, I mean, just lay it out here for a response. When I say stewardship in a church setting like this, y'all necessarily think money. There you go. Money's not a bad thing. Never against it. Never against people giving it to the church. Actually, I'm all for it because we do a lot of good things around here. But stewardship is really more than that. Stewardship is how we live our lives, how we live our faith, how we interact with God in the world, how we understand the world, and how we understand as Christians how we're supposed to live in it in a faithful way, and how we perceive the world. And it's interesting to me, this little block of parables that come together, the one that was last week, the one that's this week, and the one that's next week, all in chapter 25 of Matthew, and they're kind of lumped together, and so that makes me wonder a lot of things. And remember the placement of where this comes in the story of Jesus. This is his last week of his life. This is a quarter of the Gospel of Matthew deals with the last week of Jesus' life. And that's the one thing I always want to push with people, is how important the last week is to the gospel writers. Mark, it's almost a third of Mark's gospel takes place in the last week of Jesus' life. And so, by golly, that last week is pretty important then for them, that they're pushing everything he has. Okay, so Jesus in the last week of his life, he's come to Jerusalem. He's in the Passover. People are looking to him to be something, and he starts talking to them about what the Son of Man really is and how the Son of Man really plays out. And that's where the tension rises between him and the religious connection, that what he is saying the Son of Man is supposed to be is not what they're looking for. And so that should always give us pause, that when Jesus agrees with us all the time, we might want to step back and go, wait a second. Jesus is always on my side. Something might be wrong. Maybe I'm looking at it not quite right. So that's the uncomfortable part. Here, last week, what was last week? Anybody remember? Okay, good. No, oh yes, okay. Well, we still had a good. Actually, we had a great week last week of people who turned out. Hate to break it, huh? Huh? The bridesmaids were last week. Okay, hang in there. The bridesmaids were last week, right? And so they were supposed to do something. They had purpose. And then when they didn't, they got pitched out. Okay? So this week, think about this week. Yeah, they had one job and they couldn't do it. Okay, now this week, we'll have the parable. We'll get to the talents. Next week, we have the judgment of the nations, the sheep and the goats. Sheep on the right, goats on the left. Is that the way we look at it, or is it sheep on the right, goats on the left? I don't know. Just y'all have to work that out in your own head, okay? From which way? But all three of these stories in Matthew 25, they all have responsibilities and they all have consequences. Interesting. And they all have this gnashing of teeth kind of thing, which I don't care what kind of context you put that in, weeping and gnashing of the teeth is never good. Never good. Okay? So there is this interesting aspect. Jesus, right here at the end of his life, he's trying to get these information into them, trying to get something across to them, and yet, and with what he's saying to them, there is some kind of sense of, hey, you have this sense of responsibility in the kingdom. And then this other piece. So, here we go. Parable of the talents. Jesus still talking. For it is if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. So they've gone through a screening process to this point. Okay? Let me see where I'm at here. Okay. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one with the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things, I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward and saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But the master replied, You wicked and lazy slave, you knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I do not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was mine on my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10 talents. For to all those who have more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Familiar? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So, y'all know the rules of the game. What'd you hear that jumped out to you? What was something that you, okay, we know this story, and y'all know my reading on things. Sometimes we know it so well we don't know it at all. So, he didn't give. Yeah, each to his ability. So there is in that day what took place here was common. So Jesus is talking to them about a common story, but it has a twist to it. Okay, that's what a parable is. They take something that everybody can understand and relate to, but yet he throws in this little zinger that you go, whoa, wait a second. Okay, so they have this, they go through this, some kind of process to where they've decided, they've been screened. This person has this ability, so let's give this to him, let's give this to him, let's give this to him. And then the master splits, takes off, says, I'm out of here. Y'all are in charge. Go for it.
I'm surprised he gave the guy with 1 talent anything to begin with.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, he had the ability. Come on, y'all. Everybody, y'all work in business, right, out there in the world. And this person on paper, you go, yeah, they got, you've interviewed them. Yep. Yeah, this guy works out, and they get in, and it's like, what the, I'm on camera. Okay. Yikes. This did not go well. And what was, well, we'll get to the punchline in a little bit, maybe, about his ability or lack thereof. But, yeah, well, okay. Yeah, okay. I've thought of that many a time myself when I was like, how did I get here with this person? Anybody tell you? I mean, it's like Divinity School has 0 times of teaching you about personnel, and through the last 20 years of the first church I was in, there wasn't really much personnel, so I didn't really have much to deal with. But I spend most of the disasters I've ever had been around personnel. Okay, so there's that. So but they at least have the ability to handle what they've been given. And, by the way, just in case you're wondering, according to my reading, 1 talent was worth 20 years of salary. So, and we go, well, he only had 1 talent in the first place. No, Jesus is making this big. This is a big story. This is a big story. Right? That this is the interaction that he's dealing with. He's not talking small stuff. This is a parable of big, with big implications too. Go ahead.
I have a question about this guy and what he says to his master. The one who had received the 1 talent also came forth saying, Master, I knew you were a harsh man,
Yeah.
reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you did not scatter seed. Is he insulting him?
No, well, interesting. Well, this is great conversation. Great. This is. We were busy this week, so Deb said to mention last night late. You know, we didn't get to talk about the parable this week at all. And I was like, okay, good. Okay, so he's who of the three slaves, and remember, doulos means servant and it means slave, same word, but it's interesting here that the English interpreters in the New Revised Standard use the word slave. Just interesting to me, always interesting. So he's dealing with them. The master, the perspective of the master from the one is that he's a guy who's tough, right? He's a hard, harsh master. The other two we don't get that indication from them at all. They don't say that. Huh? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You see?
I don't know if I would trust the other two if they're willing to risk that much for me.
Oh, this is so
Or
much
risk
fun.
that much. If it's worth 15, 20 years of salary and you want to go out and risk it on an investment, maybe how does that twist around?
Shouldn't we be afraid not to?
If
You trust more with your money.
well, I'm just a little old preacher, and I don't know anything about money.
I'm just trying to wonder which Neil is going to go with this.
I love that. That's good. Again, I'm just a little old preacher, and so I don't know anything about money, but I do.
150 years worth of salary to hand out.
Yeah, but I do know this, that according to my money friends, that you don't make anything with that little risk, right? Nothing. And I do use this line in the sermon. Every app that I've ever seen where you deal with investing online, every one of them has that line in big, bold, almost blinky. That'd be a little tacky, but they don't do that, thank God. But it's like every investment has risk. And everybody knows that what follows with, I can guarantee you 15% return on your money. It's a pyramid scam, you know? And it's Bernie Madoff or whoever. So everything that's worth doing is a risk. Okay? Yeah, he didn't take a risk. He didn't. The two that are lauded did.
But he took a risk in knowing the nature of his master as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was weighing, if I invest it and lose it,
Yeah.
he's going to chop my head off.
Yeah.
If I plant it in the ground and don't earn anything, he's going to chop my head off. So
Yeah.
I'm in a no-win situation.
Interesting. What if the other two would have failed? That's great. This is good stuff, y'all. I love this.
Also, I think we think of this as financial. There's emotional. I mean, we back up something to do. There's emotional risk. I mean, if you go out there and find a spouse, there's
Wow. Yes. There is a risk, isn't there?
yeah. If you help the poor people, there's a risk. But
Yeah, you know what? Let me just tell you something. In that part, you might get everybody. Yeah, everywhere. Every time I was from urban ministry on, I can tell you when people call us or when people come by here for raising camp, and that whole thing. That's why everybody. I get that all the time. Oh, you got to be careful. You don't want to get taken. Guess what? If you're going to help people, you're going to get taken.
so, I mean,
So you can't look at it that way.
from a financial thought, that
Yeah.
an emotional risk.
Everything's a risk, right? And this guy knew the guy could produce out of nothing and yet did nothing. Isn't there a risk? It's like he told him, guess what? If you sit on your money, you put your money in a mattress, you're losing money, right? What's I mean, it's just inflation, right? Right, 3.5%. Hey, you could have gone and put it in the bank and made something. You didn't even do that. So maybe, just maybe, that the issue is the understanding of the three slaves and how they look at the world and how they look at their master and how they understand who he is, and that's how they see the world. The third one sees the master as a mean person, out to club him over the head. And so what does he do? Nothing. Better to be safe than sorry. But yet ends up sorry. Because it's how he sees God and how he sees his master. Don't want to blow the punchline. The first two don't see him that way, and are willing to go out and use his money to help produce more for him. It's not for them.
I'd be willing to invest if it's somebody else's money.
There you go. Because they don't worry about his retribution, do they? They understand him in a very different light than the third one. They see him much more generous, much more loving, much more open. They're not worried about that at all. They're willing to go and take a chance. Where the third one, there's risk there too, burying it in the backyard. What is it? You might forget where you put it. Somebody take it. And think of that. Well, when we get into the sermon, the numbers get played out in modern numbers, so they're big. I mean, so when we talk about this, you'll be going, "Whoa, yeah, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that." So, and let's think of, or we switch the money to work, or we understand it as a stewardship that's about the way we live and understand our lives as the church. Remember, the first people that heard this were that people were Jesus was speaking to. That's one group. Think about the group that Matthew was writing this to some 30 plus years later. Jesus is gone. They're waiting for Jesus to return. Jesus hasn't returned yet. And they're imminent, folks. They're not Presbyterians. They had an urgency about Jesus coming. Presbyterian, we don't. He ain't coming. We're good. We're good. We're doing all right. But they had an urgency. Why isn't he coming back? Why isn't he here yet? What are we supposed to do in the meantime? And some of them were just fine, and Paul addresses them in 1 Thessalonians. Some of them are just fine with, we'll just sit here, and we'll do nothing.
Because he may come back this afternoon. So
Yeah.
I can, exert myself.
And if we see, and if we understand God in this way, that, man, God, you're harsh, you're rough, you're brutal, you're this. I just didn't want to take a chance. I wanted to take care of me.
But then the fact that the slave that had the father, he had developed a relationship with the master that he knew.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
had a closer relationship to begin with, and that he knew what the master really wanted, and the master had faith that he would do it. So
We at least, I mean, in my at least based on how the response from the first two have a sense of some kind of secure of peacefulness with how they're interacting with God or their master. So how is it that we're supposed? Okay, so maybe the understanding for well, y'all tell me, how do we see this from the church's perspective, modern day? Jesus hadn't come back yet, right? We're still waiting.
Well, we could sit and not have all the things going on in our church, because there's risk. I mean, we complain about things getting broken and tore up all the time, but
Let me, yeah, every, like I told you, I hadn't been there long, Beulaville, and they had a Meals on Wheels program. People would come there and pick up the food and take it out into Duplin County, but they also had it as a spot where senior citizens would come eat the Meals on Wheels there. And anytime you let anybody on your property, y'all know there's liability. I mean, the L word comes up every night when I lay my head down to go to sleep. It's like, what liability will we have tomorrow? You know, if we open the doors to AA. Yep. Well, it was a guy, and the one lady fell and hurt her knee. The second one, he just walked out. He fell over dead. He ate and just died right there. And so with my great deep sense of compassion as a young minister, I go, oh my God, what's the liability here? I know, it's a touching thing. No, I mean, well, first I thought about him, and then I thought about, oh my gosh, what's this mean? Everything comes with risk. Everything. You're right. So we can hold on as the church, and this is our view in the world about stewardship. Do we live in a world where we see scarcity, or do we live in a world where we see there's this God who is willing to give us a boatload of talents, whatever that may play out to be, money, ability, like. And are we going to look at it as we're scared? We're just too scared. God's mean. God's out to get us. Got to be careful. He'll club us over the head at any moment. So we're not going to do anything. We're just going to bury what we have and sit there and wait for him to come back.
Look at the number of new members we have
Mm-hmm.
from churches who did just that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They were
Sure.
afraid, open the doors back up.
Right. Yeah.
They were afraid to take that
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
And they've done nothing.
Sure.
The number of churches that are closed because of that.
Churches close every day. More churches are closing now than ever, you know, and not just Presbyterian churches, and I dare say that you start looking at how churches look at what they have and what they do would give you a great indication of where they're headed. And the risk is we may fail. We might. We do know this for sure. You do nothing, you're going to fail. End of story. The third guy, man, I'm scared of you. I just can't do nothing. Okay? Go ahead. And we see what happens. The other two took a chance, and by golly, you just never know, you know. Just aim for the stars. You might at least hit a street light. And I think that it says, how do we, as a people, look at God and understand God, and also understand these talents are not ours, they're His. And they have been given to us not to hide, but they have been given to us to share and to work together. And now the churches that sit around and go, whoa, man, we got to do this because this is what we've always done. Or we have to just sit here. We can't go out and be welcoming people in because that's crazy. That's risky. You just don't know who you're going to get. You're absolutely right. I have no idea. But do we see a God who is gracious, or do we see a God who is mean? That's the difference between those three slaves. It should be our difference too. How are we going to respond? Let's pray. Gracious God, we give thanks for your love and your mercy, for your call to share the risk of sharing grace with others as opposed to just taking care of ourselves. May we be faithful in what you've called us to do and called us to be right here and right now as we serve you in the between times. It's in your name we pray. Amen.